Shalom, my name is Tirsa Lewis with Direct Akkad, Israeli Beit Midrash. This is Niddah Part 4, looking at Niddah in the diaspora. This is a series on Niddah. So if you haven't watched Niddah Part 1, 2, or 3, I would suggest going back and watching those 3 videos and then coming and watching Niddah Part 4. This video is about Niddah in the diaspora. So it could have been called Niddah in exile, how to keep Niddah today, Niddah in America, Niddah without the Holy Temple. It could have been called any of those titles. And so we're going to be looking at how do we keep Niddah. We looked at the Torah, we looked at some of the historical perspectives on it, but now kind of bringing it up to the present. What does this mean in a tangible, practical way for us today? And to answer that question, we're going to have to lay down some precepts. And most of these things was covered in parts 1 through 3. However, there are some things that I'm going to bring out again. The Torah instructs that the reason for Niddah laws, the reason for the separation of Tameh and Taher, or ceremonially unclean and ceremonially clean in general, is so that the tabernacle and later the Holy Temple would not become defiled. This will result if an unclean person defiled the tabernacle. Leviticus 15 verse 31 says, "Thus ye shall keep the sons of Israel separated from their uncleanness, lest they die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle, or dwelling place that is among them." The other Torah reference that we looked at showed that it was important for the Levites to know if they were unclean or clean, because if they were unclean, they would not be able to partake of the holy gifts from the offerings. Leviticus 22 verse 3 says, "Say to them, if any man among your descendants throughout your generations approach the holy gifts which the sons of Israel dedicate to Yahweh, while he has an uncleanness, that person shall be cut off from before me. I am Yahweh." So definitely when a woman was Niddah, she would not go to the tabernacle, later the Holy Temple. She would not eat of the holy gifts. If she was a Levite, she would not defile her husband or her sons. Any woman would not defile her husband, sons, daughters, or anyone else who planned to go to the temple, and if they were Levites who planned to eat of the offerings. It's clear that when we are living daily lives, we can and do easily become ceremonially unclean. We go to grocery stores and stores, clothes stores. We go workplaces, public restrooms. People touch us and we touch people. We handle money and we do business exchanges. We might ride a bus or a train or airplane where hundreds of people have sat on a seat. And how many of those people was Niddah? How many of those people was ceremonially unclean in some way? In fact, there is a saying that in exile, Israel, which is us, everyone in exile, is as a menstruous woman. And this saying is based off of Ezekiel 36 verses 16 through 19, and also Isaiah 64 verses 6 through 7. Isaiah says, "But we are all as an unclean thing, and all of our righteousness as filthy rags. And we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away. And there is none that calleth upon thy name, that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. For thou hast hidden thy face from us, and hast consumed us because of our iniquities." Isaiah 64 verses 6 through 7. That is to say that in exile, we are disconnected from the ceremonial aspects of our faith. that surround the Holy Temple service. The problem with striving to keep Niddah to the absolute letter of the law is that we run into the issue that at the end of the day, uncleanness is inevitable in exile. That does not mean that we should throw everything out and totally disregard Niddah status, totally disregard it. I'm not saying that, but it means that we have to examine how much we can actually keep and not be hypocritical in our cleanness. First and foremost, no one is going to the Holy Temple. We're going to talk about a place. No one is going to the Holy Temple. We are still awaiting the restoration. And for this reason, the purpose of the status of being ceremonially clean and unclean is not as relevant as it was when the temple stood. A congregation building is not the Holy Temple. A home fellowship or, my house or a house is not the temple. It's not the Holy Temple. So when we're looking at, there's some beliefs and groups that won't allow a woman to come to their building when she's on her cycle because she's going to defile the building. The temple, this isn't the temple. A congregation building in exile isn't the temple. A house for home fellowship isn't the temple. But if we're going to look at the spiritual significance of the tabernacle and the temple, the people went to this place to do business with the Most High. They went to this place to draw near to him, to offer a sacrifice to him. You didn't come there empty-handed. And they went to this place because that's where at the tabernacle time, they had literally had a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. And we called that the Shekinah, the Shekinah glory of the Most High. And so we when we're looking at this from a present standpoint, we ask ourselves, where is the Spirit residing now? Is it a place? Is it not in our hearts? Because, and if it's in our hearts, because we believe that we have to believe that the Ruach is not going to leave us because we are on our cycles. Ezekiel 36 says, speaking of the regathering and the restoration of Israel from the diaspora, for I will take you from among the heathen, and I will gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. And I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean. From all your filthiness and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. And you shall dwell in the land which that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. I will also save you from all your uncleanness, and I will call for the corn and will increase it, and lay no famine upon you. Ezekiel 36, verses 24 through 29. Notice that the cleansing with sprinkling is reminiscent of when Israel first made the vow to be the people of Yahweh in Exodus 24, verses 3 through 8. At that time, Moshe sprinkled the people with the blood of the sacrifice, and the people said, all that Yahweh has said, that will we do. So Yah says that, he's going to give us a new heart. He said he's going to put a new spirit within us, in our heart. And this is his spirit. And he says that he will eventually restore us to our land. The Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19, that we are the temple of the living Elohim. Why? Because his spirit is in us. Yahshua, speaking to the Samaritan woman, told her that the time was coming when those who worship Yahweh would worship him. They wouldn't worship him in Jerusalem or in Mount Gerizim, but that they would worship him in spirit and in truth. That's John 4, verses 21 through 24. We are indeed living in those days. So when we're looking at the holiness of the Holy Temple, and the reason for us, looking towards the Holy Temple, we recognize that His Ruach is within us, and that His Ruach isn't leaving us or departing from us because of ceremonial impurity. The other thing is that in exile, we talked about in exile there not being a holy temple, but in exile that we don't have holy objects either. So yes, we have Bibles, Torah scrolls. They're important. Sidors are important. Shofars, but none of these things are defiled simply by touching them. When we think about holy days in time, they're not defiled by a Niddah celebrating them. All these ideas are the product of our attempts to make the Torah relevant to our position in exile. And even though some people can keep these type of restrictions, such as a Niddah woman shouldn't celebrate Passover or the Day of Atonement, or a Niddah woman, shouldn't celebrate the Sabbath, or shouldn't touch a Bible, or shouldn't touch a shofar. Some women are able to do these things in a joyful way, and it's not bringing a hardship to them. However, other women, it can bring a hardship, and it can be a burden to women who just want to be pleasing to the Most High, who are just interested in coming to get to the knowledge of Him and wanting to worship Him in spirit and in truth. Some women stay home while Niddah. And others, even, after childbirth will stay home for 40 or 80 days. And so there's a reason to stay home after childbirth, for a certain period of time to heal. But the principle of avoiding making others unclean can be a burden. And also some women don't have the luxury of staying at home. Some women have to go to work. Some women have to go to stores. Some women have children that they have to take care of. There's things that they have to do. And so making it a Torah requirement when this isn't a Torah requirement. This isn't a Torah requirement for women at the time of the Torah, at the time that Moses gave the commandment. But it's definitely not a Torah requirement for today. It's very legalistic, and it can be a burden. I want to talk about, some anachronistic things. There's a word, it's called anachronistic, or an anachronism. And these are things that, we look at the Torah and we try to place our 20th century, 21st century thought process on something that is ancient, And so when we're doing that, we're not really looking at the historical aspects. We're just thinking about what makes sense to us, and these are things that aren't even, when the Torah was written, wasn't even thought about. In fact, the only commandment that we can fully keep in regards to Niddah and exile, and also has no bearing to defiling the Holy Temple, is the prohibition from having sexual relations during Niddah. Family purity, or taharat mishpoka, is the duty, I would say, of a Torah observant married couple. This is foundational. Leviticus 18 verse 19 says, "Also, you shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness during her menstrual Niddah impurity." Leviticus 20 verse 18 says, "If there is a man who lies with a menstruous woman and uncovers her nakedness, he has laid bare her flow, and she has exposed the flow of her blood. Thus both of them shall be cut off from among their people." Niddah in exile therefore reduces to family purity. We can keep this commandment 100%, making sure that your spouse knows when you're Niddah, and your spouse making sure you are not Niddah, etc. That's what we can do in exile. Separation from the husband and the wife becoming one. As we speak to our daughters and young girls, now it's girls as young as 8 and 9 are starting their cycles. But these young girls and our daughters who are experiencing Niddah for the first time in their life, we can help them understand that ceremonial uncleanness is not sin. That this is a beautiful rite of passage that's going to enable them one day to fulfill the first commandment given to mankind, which is to be fruitful and multiply. We must be careful to nurture women coming into the faith to also understand that they are welcome to come and study and learn of Yah. This doesn't matter if you're on your cycle or not. You need to hear the word of Yah in order to grow in truth. Paul says that faith comes by hearing the word of Elohim. Imagine a woman who knows absolutely nothing about the Torah, absolutely nothing about Yah, absolutely nothing about Yeshua, nothing, coming to an assembly door and being asked if she's on her cycle or if she has any sort of bleeding going on. And then being given a sign to wear, a Niddah sign, and a seat to sit in, and being told not to move from it. Meanwhile, a couple comes in who just had relations past sunset the evening before. Or to think about it, every woman present who has a child, even if they waited the 40 to 80 days to become clean again, because they didn't, because we don't have a holy temple, they couldn't do the sacrifice to become ceremonially clean again. So according to the Torah, according to the letter, the strict letter of the law, they're still unclean. We have to be careful not to be hypocritical in our righteousness, and I'm not saying this to put anyone down. I'm saying this to new women coming into the Torah, as well as older women who's been walking in this longer than me. And I'm even saying it to myself, that we can't get so caught up in our religiosity that we lose sight of the point of all of this. What's the point of keeping the Torah? What's the point of keeping the commandments? What's the point of believing in Yeshua and being ambassadors of the Mashiach? It's all to win souls back to the Almighty. It's to be a beacon of light and salt in the earth. And to await we're seeing this beautiful regathering and restoration of Israel from all the four corners of the earth, and that we will be brought back into the land again, and everything will be restored. Even Niddah. I think that as Hebrew women, part of our Niddah observance ought to be making sure that we're taking care of the blood. We're making sure that we're washing our hands, making sure we're wrapping up our used napkins and everything so that they're discreet. Nobody's seeing any of that. Making sure that we're cleaning up after ourselves and bathing and showering and doing all these things. But this is really what every woman should be doing, right? The last thing I want to discuss is immersion, or the mikveh. And I already showed that immersion is not commanded in the Torah for cleansing any type of Niddah impurity. However, in exile, many women find the act of immersing or dunking themselves in water or showering after, in the evening after they're beginning their 8th day, from their 7th day to their 8th day, that it's a beautiful experience for them. It's a ceremonial remembrance and mindful thought process of the transition in their bodies, that they are going from being unclean, ceremonially, to being clean, that this is a new opportunity for life in their bodies, that this is a blessing and that this is not a curse. And so, most women, they'll shower or bathe, after their cycles are over, for hygiene purposes. So the act, it might be a given for most women. However, just to make sure that you understand that it's not a Torah requirement, but it's something that some women find to be a beautiful thing in their experience of Niddah. So I hope that this lesson is a blessing for women, to find out that even while we're on our cycles, or we're recovering from childbirth, or we're suffering from uterine conditions such as fibroids, or any other condition that might cause us to have some issues, that we are still able and expected to serve the Almighty. And this is not based off of if we're on our cycles or not. This is not based off of if we're male or female. We serve him in our capacity. We serve him as women of the Most High. We're not less because of the natural function of our bodies. Instead, we are walking in the function of our bodies to bring about life in the next generation. Again, my name is Tirsa Lewis with the Rechakai Israeli Beit Midrash. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the comments section of this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yah bless.